Well, I actually served in the military, so that was a big part of it. But then you have to learn all about that period of time, and you have to learn about the Vietnam War, and then studied William Pitsenbarger and what he did, and the battle, and met all these gentlemen you see here. And but other than that, then I got involved with producing, and I became one of the producers on it because I was so passionate about the stories. Well, I did a film called The Forger with Chris Plummer before, and it was Chris and John Travolta and a handful of other incredible actors. That kind of prepared me for this. If I would have done anything other than that into this, I probably would have been a little bit overwhelmed. But yeah, you realize they put on one pant leg at a time. But they are so gifted, so talented, and yeah, every day was a new movie star legend that you had to meet, work with, get to know. And Peter Fonda was incredible, and part of us miss him here, but we know he's here. So yeah. Well, this is more than just like a military film. I believe it's a spiritual transitional film in the sense of what it does to the viewer. It takes you on the hero's journey, and that journey is just so powerful to come out and you feel like you've worked through something. And I think with all these veterans and first responders and the numbers of them that are suffering today, that I hope they come out of this feeling a little bit more healthy and a little bit more like they realize their life is important, they should stick around.
And when he told me this story, he said, I think it's a movie. And we started meeting all the men that the movie's about. And we were moved by their stories. These were men who had unfinished business. And it was all about honoring William Pitsenbarger for really a return favor for what he did for them. He saved their lives. And it became our mission. We promised the men we'd get the story done. And we didn't think it'd take 20 years. But that's how it works sometimes. We're lucky to be here, though, and blessed to have the cast we do. Really just some of the best actors on the planet. The first time we had everyone together was in the Medal of Honor ceremony, and it was like watching the Oscars in live, because it was like, oh, here comes Sam Jackson, oh, here comes William Hurt, here comes Peter Fonda. It was amazing.
The story is just so heartfelt. As a composer, it's really rare these days to get something that feels truly meaningful to write, and what they were looking for was just so lyrical and beautiful, and the story was so touching that it was a very natural fit for me to kind of really try to go for it and get it. So it's a combination of being very sensitive to the subject, because it's such a something you want to pay a lot of respect to, and I think once you find that balance of doing enough and not doing too much, it's just finding your themes and finding what really kind of speaks to the film, and then you just let it sing and let the film do all the work, and just give a little bed for people to sit on while they're watching the film.
It's been so long coming, and I don't think the audiences were ready for it 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but I think now people are coming around to understand what our veterans went through during the war. And initially, they kind of turned away from our veterans, but I think now they're beginning to embrace them as they understand that it is not the men who served, but the men who caused them to be there that were at fault, not the soldiers themselves. Well, what happened was when we had Sam Jackson and Ed Harris commit, then all the rest of them fell into place, because they realized that these actors would not commit to a film that would not seem to be important. And so, we have 9 Oscar winners and Oscar nominees in the cast. I think it's quite amazing, and I think it's worthwhile for all of them to be in this film, because I think it's so special. I want them to understand what this film is saying, which is the importance of giving, the importance of giving all of themselves to something that's worthwhile. I think in these divisive times, a picture like this is especially important and will be welcomed.
The script, and Todd Robinson, who's a genius. Let me just say, it's about Vietnam, and it's about greed and corruption. It's a good film for us right now on the planet, and it's probably the best film that I've ever been privileged to be part of. Since I've done about 300, that's seen quite a bit. And I love this film. I think it's magnificent. I'm sorry, I think it's better than 1917. Of course, we're not up this year, but maybe next year we might be that lucky. I think Mr. Robinson has made a great film for humanity. And if anybody goes out of this film and they're not crying, don't trust them, okay? It's really a great film. And it's all true. It's all based on truth. And I got to play the mother, and Chris Plummer plays the daddy. And we've got great stars. William Hurt, Peter Fonda's last film, which is amazing, The Circle of Our Lives, this week for me, because Peter was in my first film, Wild Angels, eons ago, him and Nancy Sinatra, Bruce Dern, and Diane Ladd. And now here we are again, but he's on the other side watching, I'm sure. So it's really a film worth seeing. If you want to pick one, well, I'm pledging this one, The Last Full Measure. And there's a quote from Lincoln that says, any man who gives up his life for another man has fulfilled that last full measure on the path of life. So don't miss it.
Well, it's the ultimate story of valor and sacrifice, and it's really about service greater than self. And the story of William Pitsenbarger is one of the great untold stories of the Vietnam War. So it took us 20 years to make the film, and 32 years for the veterans who he saved to get him the Medal of Honor. Well, you know, the cast, especially the men, were all of draftable age. And so when they read the material and heard the story, I think they really all wanted to pay tribute to their own generation of friends that went over there, some of whom didn't return. And so it was not difficult to get them all to sign on, and the performances are truly magnificent. Well, I really hope that they understand that even a random act of kindness placed decades before can have a true impact on other people. And that's what really happened with William Pitsenbarger. He gave his life in 1966, and here we are today in 2020, and we're still talking about him. Well, it was a matter of laying up and cross-cutting the Vietnam combat scenes with the present-day scenes, and having these wonderful actors really tell their own personal stories, and those are the things that transition us back into the past. So it really.
As an actor, I'm always attracted to true human stories. One's about, the true human condition, and this movie is exactly about that. The sacrifice that William Pitsenbarger made to go save other people's lives, and ultimately, sacrifice his own. That's what really drew me to it. Every character has someone that's relatable to someone that if not just yourself. So that really, Todd wrote the hell out of this movie. So. Well, I got to work with the younger half of the cast, so I'm just getting to meet all of the legends tonight. But we had such a really tight unit of young, up and coming actors. It made my job easy. Like I said, Todd Robinson, City Sherman, put together a really good project that was really easy to kind of sink your teeth into, and it felt real. The explosions, everything that was happening, in the jungle in Thailand made it feel like we were really in Vietnam. And made kind of my heart go out for people that actually had to experience it. It was a little scary at times. Man, there's so many messages in this, from family and making sure that you hold your kids every night and kiss them. And now, me being a father, that message really stood out to me. Brotherhood. Sacrifice. It gave me a tremendous newfound respect, added respect for our men and women in the military as well. That sacrificed their freedoms for our own. So it's.
Well, it's not every day that you come across a story that speaks to the highest value of what it means to be a human being, and this really. I was choked up when I read the script. I was choked up when I did the scene in front of all of the Vietnam vets, and I think when a story like this comes along, it really pulls on all of us to say, that human beings can be incredible things. We can do incredible things, and it speaks to the highest, and it just makes you want to be part of something like that. You can't really prepare. The best preparation I had was that I was playing a real-life character who's actually alive, so I got on the phone with Secretary Peters, and I just talked to him, and he was incredibly generous, and I could feel from him the amount of integrity of the man, but also what was driving him to make sure that justice was done for this war hero. And I basically just followed that, and then I was put in a room with about 150 military personnel and some of the actual soldiers who were in that battle, and all you can do is hold yourself together and meet the moment, to be honest. well, to be honest, it's more nerve-wracking to meet the real people and to serve the story, because acting's great, but acting's acting. So you just want to do justice to it. But on the other hand, I was so thrilled to be in a movie with some of my heroes, you know, Sam Jackson, William Hurt, Peter Fonda, so generous, so gracious, and it was literally an honor for me on that side as well. So there were acting vets and real vets, so it was a dream job. I think the one thing, I mean, everyone's going to take away their own, I suppose, way that they get impacted, but I think I'd like to think that it would speak to everyone to say that we have enormous potential as human beings, and everybody should reach for their highest. To give your life in that way is a sacrifice that hopefully very few of us will ever have to make, but to know that that is possible and it is done, it speaks to the best in humanity, and that, I think, touches the heart and the soul in a very
Well, as a combat veteran myself, it got right to my heart. It's a story that really involves the brotherhood of arms, men and women who've been in combat together, and the lengths to which they will go to see that their effort, their heroism in some cases is recognized, and that's extraordinary. I mean, that really goes to the heart of who we are as veterans. And so when Todd came to me and said, "Look, can you give me a hand here, and would you play this role?" I said, "Hey, I'm in, all in." Oh my goodness! I mean, I was in Hollywood royalty. I mean, my God, you know, I'd worked with a few of them before, Sam Jackson and Peter Fonda. But when you're walking in that tall cotton, I mean, you know, for a guy like me, I was all the time, you know. But just to see them perform, I mean, Christopher Plummer and Bill Hurt, just to watch them bring it was just an extraordinary experience. I hope they feel that, the dedication that we have to this nation and to each other. That's the heart of the.
It's an incredibly moving story. Honestly, the thing that got me into this was just meeting with Todd Robinson, and he has been working on this for a long time. It is extremely hard to get an independent movie made, and he did it. You know, we're here tonight because of his persistence and his belief that this attention must be paid. Well, it was incredible. I mean, Sebastian's just a stunning, fantastic young actor. I got to work with William Hurt, who's one of the greats, and I mean, this cast is unbelievable everywhere you look. I just hope they understand the depth of the sacrifice that these people make, that we all too often just take.
I know in America, we get hit hard enough, we all feel it, and it's amazing how people's attitudes change. So there's a lot of questions now about the world, and it's true. There's a lot of questions to be answered, and we're facing a lot of challenges, and I'm sure we can help somebody else. So this film motivates that for me, and especially because of the young man who sees it through his contact with something he's not at all familiar with. That got me, and I was very grateful to have Peter Fonda be a part of this film, and he's great, as was everybody. The thing that had brought me to this film was that even though it started back in the Vietnam War period, the consequences went on for years and my feeling was to now. And it was odd that the many people who were the most supportive were men and women who had served and were possibly just within the last few years out of the service in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and with other vets from Vietnam had found a little more progressive kind of recovery other than just areas of sobriety or whatever. And they had gone back to Vietnam with them, and there's hopefully going to be some of those people here. And I met guys one particular image stuck in my mind who stayed there, mostly men, and yet the spirit of their recovery was so impressive. And Vietnam has changed in the image of any violence or anger or anything is not there. And yet, so the double edge of memories and anxiety from other service experiences in other parts of the world, including Vietnam, and being with other vets, male or female, going through a certain kind of change of environment that brings a peace of mind and support and release. Oh, I went through that